A story that we all know, we're all familiar with, is the feeding of the 5,000. It's interesting that this is a story, a miracle that is found in all four gospel accounts. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John mention this story. So it must be something greater than just Jesus feeding people. And there is a greater message for us because we weren't part of those 5,000 that got fed. So why is this important that the church brings this up? And that all four gospel writers write about it. And St. John Chrysostom takes this and really shows us a deep meaning behind all of it. The meaning, the words, the numbers especially matter. Right? You'll remember how many loaves there were? 5 loaves. And how many fish? 2. So the 5 loaves, St. John Chrysostom says, are the books of law. Right? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, those books. And the 2 fish refer to the books of the prophets and the books of the poets, like the Psalms and the Proverbs, and then the prophets. And that's really much of the scriptures, the Old Testament scriptures that we read. And then Christ comes and takes that and blesses it. And you kind of see this Eucharistic understanding because he uses particular words, right? He blessed and broke and gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. And do you remember how many baskets were left over? 12. To show us the 12 apostles, right? So Christ comes and leaves us his apostles, right? That we are now continuing the work of the apostles. The church is continuing this work. That's what God has left us until he comes again, this work of the apostles. So these numbers are very important. They're really the message of God and his love for his people, and the apostles and the continuing of the apostles for us to seek the bread of life. Because we're all hungry, and we're all searching for real sustenance, real fulfillment. And Christ is saying, I am that fulfillment. Come and take of me, and come and take of the Eucharist, and come and take of the spiritual life. Right? Thirst and quench, let your thirst be quenched with me, with my blood. Let your hunger be satisfied with my body. Right? That's what the message is. Right? That we can be filled and there's enough for everybody and then some. But it was interesting because I was reading a book of an author who was taking this and kind of making it a first world translation of this, or a first world interpretation of this. What would it be like in our world today? Right? Because this was an example, or this is the story as it was with Christ and the apostles. But what would be our culture today, what would it look like? You know? And he was saying that, so the same story happens. Christ and his apostles are there. The multitude is there. And he's like, okay, we're hungry, let's do something. And so he goes, they go out and they come back with their 5 loaves and 2 fish. And then he tells the apostles, go out again and ask again. Go check with everybody and see what they have and ask again. And they come back and they have a mountain of food. Like there's so much. Everybody has so much to give, they gave it. And there's this whole mountain of food of loaves, of fish, and everything there. And then Christ and the apostles began to eat. And they ate. And they consumed it. And they consumed everything. And the multitudes watched them eat. And the miracle of the whole thing was that there wasn't even a crumb left for anybody else. And that was the first world interpretation of what we may look like sometimes. And I think as we have been blessed, and as we have are very privileged and blessed community and group, and we live in a blessed country, and all of those things, standing on the shoulders of people before us, I think we have to ask ourselves, which one is our story? Which one would we identify more with? Are we just consuming everything that we have and not really thinking about the kingdom? Or would we be the apostles' story, right? The way that it's been presented today. I think we have so much time than we've ever had before. We have so much time. We're not, but at the same time, we're filling it up with so much of things that we don't have time, right? We fill it up with so many social obligations that we don't have time. We have so much treasure. Right? We have so much treasure, but we consume it with so many things, And I was thinking, we have such a, I was talking to Anachan about this, he was telling me how it's hard to, always get people at church, because he generally has a younger parish, and he was telling me it's hard because there's such a travel culture, right? It's so easy to just leave. It's not like before where maybe there was a vacation once a year or something like that. Now it's multiple. I see some of these kids nowadays, they have for one wedding for a friend to get married, there's 3 or 4 travel trips. There's the proposal, there's that's somewhere, and then the bachelorette party somewhere, the bachelor party somewhere, then the wedding may even be somewhere. So many things. That's just one friend. Can you imagine if you have 5? How many times you're gone in the year? You're just gone. And they have the money, right? They have the money because they're working. They worked hard because we told them. Work hard, study hard. They do that. They've done it. And they have jobs. And they're making decent wage. But it seems to be misguided. It seems to be all consumption. Our sports culture is similar, right? Our travel culture, our sports culture is consuming time, consuming resources, consuming everything. I'm not against it, right? I love, I understand the value of these things. But I think the church gives us balance. That's why the church gives us fasting seasons, right? So even though you're maybe off for spring break, that's not the best time for us to travel. That's great Lent. And the church is saying, I haven't found it easy to travel or do those types of things trying to fast. It's almost impossible to properly do it. It's almost contradictory to each other. It's very difficult, right? And so I feel like when the church gives us, when we have something like Great Lent, and you have a week off, wouldn't that be, what if we thought about, maybe we'll go spend some extra time at church. Maybe we'll make a trip to a monastery. Maybe we'll do something spiritually minded. Fully immersing, where I wouldn't have time normally to go to evening prayer, or I wouldn't have time normally to go to extra services, but we have some time as a family. Let's go do that. We could do that with our time. We could with our talents, with our treasures. But we have no time because it's taken up by so many other things. We have no talents because they're all being used elsewhere. And our treasure, we're so caught up in that, many of us are even living in debt. Even though we have so much money, we've made more than our parents have seen or grandparents have seen. It's consumed us, right? And so sometimes I'm really thinking through with our children as we send them out into the world, have some guidance on these things. And look at the story and think, we don't have to follow. In a way, the Christian life is very counterculture in that we're not trying to partake of this world like that. We're trying to show a different world of the kingdom. And our whole mind, the apostles were like that, right? They forsook everything to go and serve. And we, to our level, should try to do that. And wouldn't it be amazing with our time and talent and treasure that every church, can you imagine, every parish comes together and whatever ministry, whatever things we need for the advancement of the kingdom, money was no object? Can you imagine if we ran churches like that? Where it's don't even worry about the money. That's going to be there. We have abundance. But we're always, every event, every camp, even I feel for these kids, they come together and they try to do a camp. They're fundraising. They're trying to figure it all out because it's, can we do it? I don't know if we can do it. That hasn't changed. That's just like how when we grew up. But when we grew up, our parents really were kind of struggling at that time in the 80s and the 90s. Still, that's the case. It's we got to figure it out. I don't know if we can afford. Campus ministry, we're pitching for donations. Just to have a little bit of food after prayer at a college campus. everything, there's not like, it should be just flowing in my mind. It should be flowing. Like any campus ministry should be, but I talk to some of these kids like, oh, we got to figure out the funds. Like, figure out the funds. What are we doing wrong as a church? What are we doing wrong as a community? That our youth don't even have those things. That they're trying to figure those things out. You talk to anybody who's actively involved. These are their things when they try to arrange ministry and things like that. And sometimes you just have, people just handling it one off here and there. But we should be thinking in this way. You know what? Let's do something that this is covered and taken care of. Let them go. If they need Uber rides to church or whatever, we're going to figure those things out. So that their kids, that's not, well, and then maybe they'll also think that way. But we're so caught up that they're just doing their thing and we're just letting this all happen. And people start to disconnect. We could use our resources, our time and talent and treasure for the kingdom. But we have to stop consuming. There's an inverse relationship. And so when I read that really struck me because I thought, where am I on that? I'm probably more like the second story than the first. And we need to move towards the story of the Christ and the apostles, where they took everything they had, and it wasn't just for them. They fed the multitudes. And it continues on generation to generation. Now glory be to the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and always, forever and ever. Amen.